Morning guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School, and what I wanted to do this morning was I wanted to talk a little bit about the basics of green woodworking, the tools that you will need to start out in green woodworking projects, and how you can obtain those tools basically on the cheap. What you see in front of you are all the tools that you really need to get started in green woodworking, and everything combined on this table probably cost less than $50. A lot of it had to be refurbished, and we'll talk about that as we go, but the total cost is still well within a reasonable budget of $50. Now, the thing to me with green woodworking is it has direct roots to bushcraft. Everything that you do in a bushcraft type environment, you are building things that you need off the landscape while carrying only a few tools. And for the most part, as bushcrafters, we try to get away with a knife, some type of an axe, and a saw. Most of the time that's kind of a standard bushcraft type kit for guys to carry. They have their knife, their axe, and their saw. Now, there's a little bit of a compromise that you have to make with things depending on what you really want to do with those tools. In my mind, you can build about anything you need with those three tools given the proper resources around you, depending on whether you have softwood trees or hardwood trees, depending on what season you're in, and depending on what your skill level is. But if you want to really refine the things that you do, make things neater looking projects, work a little bit more diligently to build things that look good, and have less stress on the tools that you have, you need to spread that out a little bit more and add a few tools to that kit. Now, are you going to carry all of these tools with you into the woods every time you go? Absolutely, you're not going to do that. This would be more of a base camp type kit if you had some type of conveyance, whether that conveyance was a sled, a canoe, a horse, some kind of a off-road vehicle that you were carrying these things in. If you had the ability to carry a few extra tools with you, this would be the base kit that I would recommend. If you were setting up a base camp somewhere, or you were on a homestead, this would also be the basis of your toolkit. And throughout the Appalachian Mountains, these items have always been the basis of the homestead toolkit for green woodworking. So let's just talk about the basis real quick, the basics real quick. We know that we have a saw, an axe, and a knife. And those things can change depending on what you want to do with them. If you're going to carry, this axe is a 4-pound Plum Felling Axe. I paid $2 for the head of this axe at a scrapyard, refurbished it, rehandled it, so I probably have maybe $20 in this axe. Top end, I've got 20 bucks in this axe with a good hickory handle. This axe will take down any tree that I need to take down in the state of Ohio in any season of the year. But it's a little bit heavy to do much fine work with. Can it be done? It absolutely can. And the more you work with any tool, the more adaptable you're going to be with that tool if it's the only thing that you have. A smaller axe than this may be preferable for you, depending on the work you plan on doing, but a large axe like this is definitely going to cut down trees big enough to build a cabin if you needed to. It's the workhorse axe. Something that's 4 to 5 pounds is going to be a workhorse felling axe. Anything smaller than that is going to be limited in its total capability, but the lighter weight it is, the easier it's going to be to manipulate for you for woodworking and green woodworking tasks. And remember, we're talking about working green wood here, not seasoned wood at the moment. So you're going to want a decent axe. A full-size felling axe is not a bad thing to have around the homestead or around any permanent camp. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to buy a felling axe. You just have to find a good head and then fix it yourself. So while we're on the subject of axes, let's talk about hatchets real quick. And this is a double bevel hewing hatchet. And again, this was I think this one came from a sale, and I think I paid $5 for it. It was pretty rusted up when I got it. I redid the head completely, resharpened it, rehomed it, and did all of that stuff. But this is a very good carving and shaping type axe that you can use on top of a stump or a hacking stock to shape material, whether you're making bowls or spoon blanks or chair rungs or bed rails or even beams. You can hew very well with this axe. It works very, very well for that. This is an indispensable item in the end if you're going to do a lot of green woodworking. But if you didn't have the capability of carrying two different axes, you could find a happy medium between the two. But if you've got the capability of carrying two, I would recommend some type of hewing or carving type hatchet and a large felling axe. Again, you could go with something else. It wouldn't have to be this type. This is a Collins. This is an old phone company hatchet is what this is. But it does have a double bevel on it that is pretty much an even bevel. It doesn't have that hewing bevel of being a lesser degree on one side, more of a degree on the other side, and it doesn't have a flat on one side and a chisel grind like a straight hewing axe would have. So this is my carving and hewing axe combination in one tool. But it's a very, very good heavy tool. It's got a nice wide bit, so it takes off a lot of material. Again, very, very cheap, but a very good tool. Now, let's talk about saws real quick. There's lots and lots of saws that you can carry, and it could be any type of saw that suits your fancy. What I find works really, really well for me is just a takedown buck saw with a 20, I think this is a 22-inch blade maybe, but this has got a Baco drywood blade on it. And I know we're talking about green woodworking here, but the difference is with a drywood blade, you have more teeth per inch, so you can do finer cutting than you'll be able to do with a green woodworking saw blade. A green wood or a pruning type blade is going to leave a large kerf, and it's going to make a deep, wide gouge in your material, and it's hard to get fine cuts with that. So if you're only going to carry one saw and not carry some type of a finer cutting saw, then I would recommend putting a green wood blade and possibly a drywood blade both in your kit, because you can always build this while you're out there. And that's the beauty of a lot of the stuff with woodworking is you can refurbish it or make what you need on the fly. If you break a wooden handled tool, you can make a new handle for that tool on the fly. And that's the importance of having wooden handles on your axes and things like that. The importance of having wooden saws is that you can make those things on the fly. The saw blade itself here, brand new, costs about $6 or $8, I think. So that's the investment in a good saw, is $6 to $8. Let's talk real quick about, I want to talk about knives last. Even though that's really the basis of the kit, I want to talk about it last because of what we're talking about with green woodworking. The other three tools that you need are not an absolute necessity to start green woodworking, but they will do a lot for you in a short amount of time. The first one is a furrow. And a furrow is basically an upside down axe. The handle goes in it up through the bottom this way, and the blade is on the bottom. And what this is used for is it's used for the things that you would normally think about possibly batoning a larger blade through or using a hatchet for. It will riv and split, but it does a very good job because it has a wide blade. It does a very good job of splitting larger planks. So if you are making shingles or you're making backings for things, or you want a large slat for the back of a pack frame or something like that, a furrow is an easy way to split those things out. And they also make really, really short work of kindling and fuel woods that are, 4-inch diameter and things like that, up to 8-inch diameter, easy enough in camp because they're easy to use. And they're very, very durable. So you're not going to tear up your axe or dull your axe or take a chance on breaking a knife that you're trying to baton to riv things out with. That's what a furrow is the workhorse for. It's a pretty heavy tool. Again, really requires conveyance to carry something this large. You could scale this down a lot smaller than this and get a lot out of it. I carry a furrow with me a lot of times that's made out of an old horseshoe rasp that's about 10 inches long maybe and about a quarter of this weight. But a good heavy furrow like this, again, will process any size wood you want to process. So for green woodworking, it's a necessity to have that tool because number one, it saves on other tools. Number two, it's the right tool for the right job if you're riveting and splitting. The next tool that you'll want is a draw knife. And this draw knife, let me go back to this real quick. This is the only tool that I purchased new. And I purchased it new, but I purchased it from a flea market, and it was only $15. So this is the most expensive tool pretty much of the lot as far as what I paid for it. But it's also probably one of the most heavy duty next to an axe. You're never going to tear this thing up. And again, wooden handles are easy enough to replace. A draw knife is another tool that you're going to want for debarking and shaping wood quickly. This thing will shape wood very, very quickly to the round from a square. This draw knife was $10 at a flea market. It's in real good shape. The handles are in good shape. It's got metal butt caps over the top and it's peened over. So it is a very heavy duty knife. It's got a little bit of a belly to it, but not too much. It's got a little bit of a curve to it, but not too much. So it's a very versatile tool because it can do slight hollowing, but it can also do fine carving on the edge of things for rounding purposes. You can get no problem finding draw knives like this in the $10 range at flea markets, estate sales, and things like that. You just need to be able to refurbish and resharpen them. But that is a tool that you're definitely going to want. If you can find a folding model, which I have a couple of at a sale somewhere, those are great kit items because you can stuff those into a pocket and carry a draw knife as an optional tool with you, even in your normal bushcrafting kit. Now, the other two tools that we need to talk about that are what's considered kind of vital to green woodworking. The first one is a spoke shave, and this is an old iron spoke shave that was gifted to me, so it didn't cost me anything. A spoke shave is a good tool for fine carving. Yes, you can use your knife for a lot of things that you can use a spoke shave for, but a spoke shave is very, very good for fine finishing work on green wood, whether it's the back of a spoon, the back of a bowl, the leg of a stool or a chair or something like that. All of those things, a tool like this will make very short work of. And you can find spoke shaves very, very reasonable at sales and flea markets. I've seen lots and lots of them in the $10 range for one that's in really, really decent shape. The only thing you might have to do is clean it up a little bit, pull the plane iron out of it and sharpen it up, and you'll be ready to go. And it doesn't really weigh a whole lot. This one's heavier than a lot of them because this one is like a cast iron body on this one. But I wanted something that was going to be really, really heavy duty, and I think this is. All right, so now let's talk about knives. For green woodworking, you really want a fine carving tool. And this is not the tool that you necessarily are going to carry on your hip as your, if all else fails, this is the tool I've got. I would carry something like my Pathfinder Scorpion from the Pathfinder knife shop or something like that, which has the Scandinavian style design in the blade. It has the nice long Scandinavian grind on it, somewhere between 22 and 26 degrees on the bevel. So it does really good fine carving work, but it's also a full tang knife, so I know I can abuse it a little bit if I have to. I'm not going to hurt it. Does that mean I have to have that for green woodworking? Absolutely not. My favorite green woodworking knives are just these cheap old Sloyd style Mora knives. And these things, are in the $10 to $20 range at the most expensive for the most part. And they are a very, very fine knife. This one's high carbon steel. They also make them in laminated. There are some big advantages to the laminated steel when it comes to woodworking in general because they have more flexibility than the carbon steel does. And they also hold an edge for a long time. But the carbon steel has the advantage of being a longevity tool where I can sharpen this thing by not so specific means and get a good edge on it pretty quickly. Whereas with the laminated steel knives, I really need the right sharpening implements to get that thing to a razor edge. I don't necessarily have to have that with the high carbon, but it may not hold an edge as long. This one I've had since 2007. It has never failed me, and I really have abused this knife pretty bad, but it's got a good fine working edge on it for carving wood. Those are the basic tools that you need. You need a felling axe, you need some type of a shaping hatchet or a carving hatchet, you need a saw, a draw knife, a furrow, a spoke shave, and some type of carving knife. And again, this is the basic tools that any homestead in the Appalachian Mountains would have had from probably the late 1700s through the turn of the last century. These tools would have been standard kit in any homestead. Green woodworking is an important part of bushcraft. It's an important part of the history of woodcrafting in the United States and green woodworking. And green woodworking is a skill that can do nothing but enhance your experience in the woods as a bushcrafter, because all the things that you're going to do as a bushcrafter, most of them are going to involve wood in one way, shape, or form. Understanding wood, understanding how to work wood, remove the resources from wood, whether it be the bark, the inner bark, the sapwood, the heartwood, how to carve it, how to shape it, how to season it, and how to bend it are all important aspects when it comes to bushcraft. Green woodworking will teach you how to do all of those things. I'm Dave Canterbury with Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining for this video. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, and we will talk more about green woodcrafting or green woodworking in the very near future. Thanks, guys.